Hey guys, it's Justin again with another video. I made a promise to you guys late last year that we were going to do a build-along video, and this is it. So if you guys picked up the Extreme Squad God Gundam model kit, now's the time to bust it out because we're going to start working on it. Hey guys, welcome to the build-along video series for the God Gundam SD resin kit from Extreme Squad. The first step to working on any of your resin models is to take all of your pieces, compare them to the manual, and make sure that you have every piece that is included in the manual. If you do not have these pieces, please contact where you purchased your model and make sure that you get your replacements. Otherwise, you might not be able to get them. And while we're making sure parts are here, I want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month. We've got Gilbert, Andy, and I want to give a special welcome to SD. Thanks for the support, guys. Once your parts have been counted and separated, I like to put them into small plastic bags to keep track of. I usually do this according to sub-assemblies, but you can do it any way you think best. The next step is going to be removing any flash on the model. To remove flash, look for parts that have holes and gaps in them, and look for a very thin, almost transparent layer of resin. You can simply cut this away using a modeling knife. Now for the sake of this video, we're going to start from the legs and work our way upwards throughout the entire series, so we can see the models start to come together. Once we've cleaned any flash off of the model, it's time to soak the parts for a few hours, or preferably overnight in a degreaser to remove any mold release agent that might have been left over from the casting process. Once your parts have sat for a few hours, you can remove them from the degreaser. Don't do like I did here, please make sure you wear some gloves. I didn't have anything on hand, so I just kind of had to do what I had to do. You can also use tweezers or something to get the parts out if you need to, but I like to lay them on paper towel or some old towels to dry. I'll also lay towels over the top of them and press down gently to make sure that they dry on both sides. Leave them for a few hours to dry. I think it's worth noting that this is likely going to be the largest video in this series just because there's a lot of things that I need to establish that need to be done with every batch of parts this model contains. I'm not going to go over this every single time in every video. You're going to have to degrease all your parts, you're going to have to clean up all your parts, you're going to have to check for flash, so don't look forward to these parts in the future videos. For gate removal on resin models, it's a lot like removing nub marks and gates from plastic models. In fact, it's one of the areas where resin and plastic almost kind of converge in a lot of ways. Make sure when you enter this phase of cleaning up your resin you wear a mask and work slowly so you don't damage your parts. Clip your gates down to make sure that they're easier to sand, and then using a file or some sandpaper, slowly work the surface until it's as smooth as possible. You might have to come back and revisit some of these parts later on in the build, but this is what I like to call your round one cleanup. As you can see, I like to dry fit my parts as I clean them up. The next round of cleanup is going to cover what I call a resin slip. I'm not really sure what causes it, but it almost creates a little bit of a step in the surface of the model that you're working on with like a cracked texture between the two layers. Depending on how deep it is, you can usually just sand it smooth and things will be fine. I like to use a knife to get into kind of tough corners and hard to reach areas, but that's all you should need to do and you'll be fine. Cleanup is important, so be sure to inspect each part thoroughly before moving on to the next step. The last thing we're going to talk about in this video is the leg itself. The assembly of the leg is incredibly straightforward. The build is a lot like a lot of high-grade kits in nature, so follow the instructions carefully and you should have a working leg in no time. I'm going to mock my leg together using blue tack, but you can use masking tape or anything else that you can think of to hold the parts in place temporarily until you're ready to paint. The only parts in this assembly I'm going to plan on pre-gluing are going to be the hip joints that house the polycaps. Everything else that might have a seam actually covers up with another part, so you don't have to worry about those so far. If you don't mind masking, you could glue the support arms to either one of the leg covers if that's what you want to do, but I'm going to paint them separately, so I'm just going to wait on that part. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video and you've taken your first steps into resin. It's really not as daunting as it might seem. There's a lot of overlap between plastic and resin model kits, although resin often requires a little bit more work in the build and cleanup phases of the build. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider sharing it with your friends and subscribing. It helps me out a ton. And if you want to support this channel further, I've got a t-shirt store and a Patreon channel down below. Go ahead and give me a click if you want to check those out, but I'll see you guys at the next video. Thanks for watching. Later.